Hearing God's voice is something all believers can do and should do. And it's something that we grow in our whole walk of faith. And I hear more from God today than I did in my past. And that should be something we all say. Yes, we'll have highs and lows and seasons. But John 10:27 says, "My sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me." And so we're going to talk about how to hear God's voice on an individual level, because we have the Bible, which is God's general will of God, bedrock truth and crucial. We must know Scripture because that's the bedrock. And when we hear voices, one of the distinguishings to know that it is not God is when it does not align with Scripture. There's a couple more cautions I'm going to get into, and then we're going to talk about 6 different ways in which we can hear God's voice. But the other caution is to consider your motives, like reflect on why you want to hear God's voice. There's been times in my life, if I'm honest, I want to hear God's voice because it makes me look good. You know, if I do this miraculous thing, how will this make me look? And that is not the way we should be going about hearing God's voice with that motive. The goal should be a relationship, because that's what God desires from us. And that's what a fulfilling life is that there's this listening and doing. Listening and receiving. And that's the way our walk should be. So let's talk about it. Number 1, the first crucial step is just to believe that it's possible. You don't have, if you're early on in this and you haven't really heard God's voice, belief might be something that could be a struggle for you. I think it was Barnabas Piper that said something that really helped me with areas that I had to have more faith in. And that's this. He said, in order to have faith, doubt must be present. Otherwise, it is called certainty. And so doubt is not the absence of faith. You can still have faith and doubt. Bible specifically talks about giving God what we have. And so if you have faith of a mustard seed, he can do miraculous things. And so it doesn't require a lot, but just first, number 1, believe that it's possible. Number 2, margin. Margin is something we need to build in. A lot of times we do not have space to hear from God. Have you ever had this where you put a little bit of God in the morning and then expect a lot of him throughout the day? The more margin we have built in, the more we're going to hear. In fact, just a little tip, when someone asks you to pray for something, a little way is just to build margin, and even right there, is even though it feels awkward to have space and silence in between them asking and you praying, stop, wait. Ask God what you should pray for, because sometimes it'll be a little different than what someone asked you to pray for. That is the kind of relationship we can have with the Spirit. It's the kind of relationship we should have with the Spirit. So have margin, build in those spaces in time in between things so you're not rushing from one meeting to the other. Have you ever come home from work and carried work home because you're just fast? That's the way I've gone about my life. A lot of times I make that mistake and I carry those things into the room. And so it's hard when we do not have margin and we're trying to hear. So speaking of carrying things, that's number 3. We need to notice when we go and seek God in prayer to hear his voice, that we are carrying things, worries for the day, to-do lists. If we're carrying things, it's hard to hear and receive from God at the same time. So when you're going into prayer, examine your thoughts. What are you worried about? 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast your anxiety to him because he cares for you. So a simple exercise is just to, when you notice things that you're worrying about or thinking about, God, I give my kids to you. God, I give my to-do list to you. God, I give my financial worries to you. These are different things we can do that allows space to be able to hear the Spirit of God. Number 4, I'll get to in a moment. But before I do, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is me. We don't have a sponsor. If you are not subscribed to the channel, I'd love for you to subscribe and be part of our community. And hit that thumbs up if you're enjoying the post. It tells YouTube, hey, send this out to more people. But number 4, simply love God. When we empty out our worries and we receive in the loving, there's been times where I've just loved God and I hear him just tell me what I mean to him. As I'm loving him, he loves me. And this is one of the things that we need to be doing is, again, this back and forth. Simply love him. Love him for who he is. Love him for what he's done for you. Number 5, be in a place that reminds you of God. My wife and I bought a house. There's nature all around us. You could hear one of the dogs barking, I think, on video, which is our neighbor over there that way. But nature displays his handiwork, and it reminds me of who he is. There are times where when I want to hear his voice, I sit in nature. I'll go for a walk down the hill on our property and through the woods. What are places around you that God put inside you that remind you of him? There are places. I know there is. Number 6, people. What people remind you of God? What people refill you? What people energize you? What fellow believers remind you of who God is by how they are a reflection of him? This is another way we can hear from God. In fact, sometimes when I've wondered if I heard from God correctly, a friend has said something that confirmed something I heard. And this is one of the ways in which we can hear God and confirm something that he spoke to me, because there's times as we're practicing this, because it is a practice, that we're not 100% sure, was that God or was that me? Because he's speaking in this space up here. And so sometimes I'm not quite certain, and sometimes I am. Number 6, activities. What are activities that you enjoy doing? See, God knew you and knit you in your mother's womb. He knew who you were going to be before the foundation of the world. He wired you to like certain things, and there's certain activities you do that you enjoy. And when we thank him in our enjoyment, he can speak to us. I love the outdoors. I love fly fishing. I love hunting. These are some things, some activities I do. And when I'm doing it is the most loud God is in those moments. I'm away from things. It's combining a few things. I'm having margin. I'm having stillness. These are areas in which we can hear. These are environments that we are able to hear. Now, I just want to be clear. I'm not saying do these things, then he will speak. I'm saying do these things so you can hear him speak, because he is speaking. And just another word of warning, just to end, this connection, this give and take we have with God, and there are things we can do to kind of quiet his voice in our life. If we're living in object sin and unrepentant hearts, that quiets the voice of God. If he tells you to do something and you don't do it, it quiets the voice of God. This is not some punishment, but there's a callousness that comes over us in those moments. I hope this helped you. It was a good help for me to remind me of different things, because again, these are practices. Hearing God's voice, we become better at it the more we listen, and I think that was God, and act on it. And we become much more clear about distinguishing between our thoughts and God's thoughts. Have a great day. God bless you as he whispers to your heart things you should do, and you are obedient to do them.